Hi there. Today we are going to be talking about compound interest, which, as we mentioned yesterday in class, is basically rent on money. So you've borrowed money from someone or a group like a bank, and you have to pay back the money you borrowed, but you also have to pay back a little bit extra, and that's called interest. We will talk about the formula that we use in order to help calculate this, and we'll also look at a couple of examples to show what this might look like. So first off, we have our formula here. And our formula is A equals P, and then parentheses 1 plus R, and that is to the T power. And I will explain each of these individually. So first off, A is basically our total amount. This is the total amount you're either going to pay for your loan, or this is the total amount you're going to get out of a savings account after a period of time. But A, easiest way to remember, is for amount, and that's your total amount. P, right here, as we discussed yesterday, is called the principal. Principal is the initial amount, the amount you are either putting into the bank account or the amount for the loan which you borrowed. The rate, that's your percent, generally such as like 3% or 5%. But the big important thing is you want to write it as a decimal. Remember, to convert a percent to a decimal, you just divide by 100. So, for instance, 3% would be equal to 0.03. So you want to use that as a decimal instead of a percent. Otherwise, your calculations are not going to be quite correct. And lastly, we have T, and T represents time. Sometimes time is given to us in years, sometimes time is given to us in months, but T always represents time, and that will usually be explained to you in the problem that you were given. So let's take a look at our first example here, and this is going to involve investing money. This is going to involve a loan. The second example will involve investing money. So our first example here, we take out a loan for $3,000, and this is at 4% interest, and this is going to be over 8 months, and we want to know how much we pay total. So we're going to have to use our calculations with our formula that we just saw in order to calculate this out. So if you didn't write down the formula that I just had on the last slide, go ahead and pause and rewind and write down that formula, because that formula is going to be pretty important. So if we look at the information from this problem, we said we had $3,000 that we borrowed, and that's our P, that's our principal, that's the initial amount that we borrowed. We said we had a rate of 4%, so when we convert 4% to a decimal, we get 0.04. And we were also given our time is 8 months. So T equals 8, and we need to find the total amount that we're going to pay. So we're going to use our formula that we learned on the first slide and the information which we got from the previous slide in order to calculate our total amount that we need to pay. So if I write out my formula here, I still have A equals P parentheses 1 plus R to the T. Now I'm going to fill in my values that I know, and we should be able to calculate this out pretty simply. So first off, I know that P is 3,000. I'm going to write this a little further down. P is 3,000. My R is 4%, but I want to write it as a decimal, so I'm going to write in 0.04. And then I know that my T is 8, so I'm going to have to the power of 8. Now our first step here is to simply add 1 plus 0.04. So the 3,000 stays the same. I have 1.04, and this is raised to the power of 8. Now the next step, you will want to grab your calculator because this is not something most people can generally do in their heads. I've got to grab my calculator. And we're just going to enter this in the way we normally would enter exponents. So if I enter 1.04 to the power of 8, that gives me 1.37 if I round to 2 decimal places. So I now have 3,000 times by 1.37. Okay? And our last step here is to simply multiply 3,000 times by 1.37. When you do this, you should get 4,110. So what this says is that even though we only borrowed $3,000 originally, we have to pay back $4,110 because they let us borrow that money. The interest on this was 1,110. So if we do 4,110 minus 3,000, which was the initial amount, we actually paid $1,110 in interest. So we paid quite a bit of money just to borrow the original amount of money. And this is how banks make money. This is how loan sharks make money and all of that. It's an important thing to know about so you don't borrow too much and not be able to pay it back. The next example we're going to look at has to do with investing money and how you can make money off interest. So for instance, you want to start a 10-year investment at 3% interest. If you want to invest $5,000, if you want $5,000 at the end of the investment of 10 years, how much do you need to invest? And the invest is being cut off there, but it's how much we want to invest. So we're going to use the same formula as last time, actually, but this time we don't know what P is. We're looking for P. So we want to find what A is. Or we have A, we're trying to find P, sorry. A is 5,000, so we know we want $5,000 out of our investment. So we want our result to be $5,000 at the end of the 10 years. We know our rate is 3%, or 0.03, and we know the time, we want 10 years. So we need to use our same formula as before, where we have A equals P1 plus R to the T. And we're going to plug in everything we know. So we know what A is. We know that A is 5,000. We don't know what P is, so let's leave that just as P. That's a variable that we're trying to find. We have 1 plus R, so I have 1 plus 0.03. And then lastly, I have 10 for T. So this is what my formula looks like once I have plugged in all of my numbers that I know. And we can go ahead and start calculating. So very first thing, inside the parentheses, need to add these two together. So I have 1.03 to the power of 10. And the 5,000 over here stays the same. We didn't change anything with that. Okay? So now once again, you want to grab your calculator because it's very difficult to calculate 1.03 to the power of 10 in your head. So if you do this, 1.03 to the power of 10, you should get 1.34 if you round to 2 decimal places. Now, if I want to get P by itself, I need to get rid of this 1.34. So since the p and this 1.34 are multiplied, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to divide. So divide both sides by 1.34. 1.34. These two will cancel out. We will have p by itself, and when we divide this, this will tell us the initial amount that we should put into our bank account in order to get $5,000 at the end. So if I do 5,000 divided by 1.34, I should have 37.31 and 34 cents. So what this says is if I invest $3,731.34 in a bank account at 3% interest for 10 years, I should have $5,000 total at the end of that. That means if we subtract these, means you should have $1,268.66 if we round that you made off of just interest. So you didn't actually do anything to get this money. All you did was you put it in a bank account and it sat there. And over those 10 years, you made money off of it. You made quite a bit of money off of it. So this is one way that interest can be good, and interest can be made to help you make money. So I hope this video has been helpful to you guys and you guys understand a little bit better what interest is and how it works.